Kicked out of first class for looking poor, the billionaire CEO's revenge was instant. Story summary. When exhausted billionaire tech CEO Marcus Chen shows up at the airport in a hoodie and jeans after closing a massive deal in Shanghai, a judgmental flight attendant assumes he's too poor for first class and threatens to remove him by security. What the attendant doesn't know is that Marcus has the airline CEO on speed dial, and his revenge will be swift, public, and life-changing for everyone involved. Marcus Chen had been awake for 37 hours straight. His reflection in the airport bathroom mirror told the story. 3-day stubble, eyes rimmed with red, a faded Stanford hoodie with a coffee stain on the sleeve, and jeans that had seen better days. He splashed cold water on his face and ran wet fingers through his disheveled hair. The Silicon Valley uniform, he thought wryly, except most people didn't know he was wearing a $30 billion company on his shoulders. The negotiation in Shanghai had been brutal. 72 hours of back-to-back meetings, translation delays, cultural nuances he'd nearly missed, and finally, the deal was done. Chen Technologies would be manufacturing its revolutionary quantum processors in partnership with the largest electronics conglomerate in Asia. It would change everything. But right now, Marcus just wanted to sleep. He'd booked the first available flight back to San Francisco, first class, because the 12-hour journey in coach would kill him. His assistant Sarah had arranged everything remotely. She'd probably been horrified when she saw his disheveled state through their video calls, but she knew better than to comment. Marcus wheeled his battered carry-on toward Gate 47, the old Samsonite he'd bought in college. He'd never replaced it. Some things were lucky, and this suitcase had been with him through every major moment of his life. His first startup that failed, his second that got acquired for $50 million, and his third, Chen Technologies, that had made him a household name among tech circles. The first-class lounge was closed for renovations, so Marcus found a quiet corner by his gate and collapsed into a chair. He pulled his laptop from his bag, a custom prototype of Chen Technologies' latest model that wouldn't hit the market for another 6 months, and tried to catch up on emails. Within minutes, his eyes were closing. Sir, excuse me." Marcus jolted awake. A flight attendant stood over him, her expression professional but tinged with something that made his stomach tighten. "Yes," he mumbled, glancing at his watch. "Still 40 minutes until boarding." "Are you flying with us today?" "Yes, flight 447 to San Francisco." She glanced at a colleague standing a few feet away, a tall man with perfectly coiffed hair and a name tag that read Derek, Senior Flight Attendant. Derek approached with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you're flying," Derek paused meaningfully, "economy class." Marcus frowned. "First class actually, seat 2A. Derek's smile widened, but not in a friendly way. "Sir, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass." Marcus fished his phone from his pocket and pulled up the mobile boarding pass. He held it out. Derek took longer than necessary to examine it, his expression shifting from skepticism to barely concealed surprise, then back to skepticism. "This must be some mistake," Derek said, his voice loud enough that nearby passengers were beginning to stare. "You can't seriously expect us to believe." "Believe what?" Marcus's voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. "That you're a first-class passenger." Derek gestured at Marcus's appearance with barely disguised disdain. "Look, we understand that sometimes people upgrade themselves digitally or acquire boarding passes through less than legitimate means. We've had issues with this before, so I'm going to need you to come with me to the desk so we can verify your identity and how you obtained this ticket." Heat flushed through Marcus's chest. He'd dealt with racism before, the casual assumptions, the microaggressions, the surprise when people learned that the Asian guy in the hoodie was the CEO, not the engineer. But this was something else. This was public humiliation. "My ticket is legitimate," Marcus said carefully. "I booked it through my company's travel department. You can verify it in your system. Sir, I'm trying to help you avoid embarrassment when you try to board, Derek said, his voice dripping with false concern. Why don't you just go to the economy cabin where you belong, and we can avoid any unpleasantness? Several passengers were openly watching now. Marcus saw a well-dressed woman in a designer suit whisper something to her companion. A businessman in first-class lounge attire smirked. I paid for first class, Marcus said, his voice leveled despite the anger building inside him. And I'm going to sit in first class. My boarding pass is legitimate, and unless you can show me a specific security concern or regulation I'm violating, I don't have to go anywhere with you. Derek's face hardened. Sir, as senior flight attendant, I have the authority to deny boarding to any passenger I deem disruptive or suspicious. And right now, you're being disruptive. I'm sitting in a chair. You're refusing to cooperate with airline personnel. I'm refusing to be treated like a criminal because I don't fit your idea of what a first-class passenger should look like. The first attendant, whose name tag read Jennifer, touched Derek's arm. Maybe we should just call the gate supervisor. I am handling this, Derek snapped. He turned back to Marcus, and now there was real hostility in his eyes. You have two choices. You can come with me quietly to verify your identity, or I can have airport security remove you. What's it going to be? Marcus's phone buzzed. Sarah calling, probably with some urgent detail about the Shanghai deal. He declined the call. This situation needed his full attention. I'd like to speak to your supervisor, Marcus said calmly. I am the supervisor for this flight, Derek shot back. And I'm telling you that you're not boarding my aircraft looking like some homeless person who snuck a first-class boarding pass. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do I need to call security? Something inside Marcus clicked. He'd spent 15 years building his company from a garage startup to a tech giant. He'd navigated boardrooms full of venture capitalists who tried to squeeze him out. He'd faced down corporate raiders, patent trolls, and competitors who tried to bury him. And he was not, absolutely not, going to be humiliated in an airport terminal by a power-tripping flight attendant. He stood up slowly, pulling out his phone again. Let me make this very simple for you. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm the founder and CEO of Chen Technologies. I'm sure you've heard of us. We built the processor in the phone you're probably carrying. I booked this ticket myself through my corporate travel account. And if you actually check your system instead of making assumptions based on how I look, you'll see that I'm not just a first-class passenger. I'm a premier diamond status member with 3 million miles on your airline. I've flown first class on your airline literally hundreds of times. Derek's expression flickered just for a second, but he recovered quickly. Anyone can claim to be anyone. Fine. Marcus's fingers flew over his phone screen. Let me call your CEO. I have Richard Morrison's personal cell. We sit on a tech council together. I'm sure he'd be very interested to hear about how your airline treats its highest-tier customers. You expect me to believe you have Richard Morrison's personal. Marcus hit dial on speaker. The phone rang twice. Marcus, how'd Shanghai go? The voice was warm, familiar, unmistakably that of someone used to command. Derek's face went pale. Hi, Richard, Marcus said, not taking his eyes off the flight attendant. Shanghai went great, but I'm having an interesting experience at your Shanghai airport right now. One of your senior flight attendants, Derek, is threatening to have me removed from my first-class seat on flight 447 because I apparently don't look wealthy enough to fly first class. He's suggesting I obtain my boarding pass fraudulently and wants security to remove me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Richard Morrison spoke again, his voice had gone from warm to ice-cold. Put him on the phone now. Marcus held out his phone. Derek didn't move, his face now cycling through shades of white and red. Jennifer had taken several steps back, her hand over her mouth. He wants to talk to you, Marcus said pleasantly. Derek took the phone like it was a live grenade. Hello, Mr. Morrison. Marcus couldn't hear Morrison's side of the conversation, but he watched Derek's expression crumble in real time. The flight attendant's hand started shaking. Yes, sir. No, sir. I didn't. Yes, sir. I understand. Yes, immediately. Yes, sir. He handed the phone back to Marcus like it was burning his hand. Marcus, you still there? Morrison's voice had warmed again, but there was steel underneath. Still here. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. This is unacceptable. Derek will be suspended pending investigation, and I'm going to personally ensure this never happens to anyone again. You should also know that I'm upgrading you to our new first-class suite. The entire front cabin is yours for the flight, and we're going to have a very serious conversation about unconscious bias training across all our staff. I appreciate that, Richard. No, I appreciate you calling me instead of just tweeting about it and tanking our stock price, though you'd be justified. There was a pause. Are you okay? That question, genuine concern from someone he barely knew outside of professional contexts, nearly broke through Marcus's composure. I will be. I'll call you tomorrow. Safe flight, Marcus. The line went dead. Marcus looked at Derek, who seemed to have aged 10 years in 5 minutes. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chen. I should have. Derek was literally wringing his hands. You should have treated me like a human being, Marcus said quietly. You should have taken 5 seconds to actually check your system before making assumptions. You should have remembered that how someone looks has nothing to do with their worth or their bank account. But mostly, you should have just been kind. That's all any of us really wants, just basic human kindness. Jennifer stepped forward, tears actually streaming down her face. Mr. Chen, I am so sorry. I should have said something. I should have stopped him. You did try, Marcus said, his voice softer. I heard you. You suggested calling a supervisor. That's more than most people do. It wasn't enough. No, Marcus agreed, but it was something. The gate supervisor arrived then, a woman in her 50s who'd clearly been running. Mr. Chen, I'm Patricia Williams, gate supervisor. I just received a call from our corporate office. I cannot apologize enough for what happened. We're boarding you first before anyone else. The entire front cabin has been cleared for your exclusive use. Marcus glanced at his watch. Still 20 minutes until boarding. That's not necessary. It absolutely is necessary, Patricia said firmly. And Mr. Morrison has instructed me to personally escort you to your seat and ensure you have everything you need for the flight. He's also comped your flight and given you 200,000 bonus miles as an apology. Despite everything, Marcus almost laughed. 200,000 miles. He could fly around the world twice with that. Not that he needed to. He'd been traveling so much lately he was practically living on planes anyway. Derek, Patricia said, her voice hard. You're grounded. Security will escort you off the premises. Your supervisor will contact you about next steps. Derek's face crumpled. Please, I need this job. I have a mortgage, a family. You should have thought about that before you profiled a passenger, Patricia said coldly. Marcus surprised himself by saying, wait. Everyone looked at him. I don't want him fired, Marcus said slowly. I want him educated. I want him to understand why what he did was wrong, really understand it, not just parrot it back in some mandatory training. I want him to think about this moment every time he looks at a passenger and makes an assumption, and I want him to be better. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded. I'll pass that along to corporate, though I can't promise anything. This is a serious violation of our company values. I know, Marcus said, but revenge isn't what I'm after here. Change is. Derek was crying now, actual tears running down his face. Thank you, I'm so sorry. Marcus just nodded. He was too tired for this, too tired for all of it. But the drama wasn't over. Excuse me, a sharp voice cut through the crowd. The well-dressed woman Marcus had noticed earlier strode forward, her designer heels clicking on the tile floor. "I heard everything that just happened, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. This airline is bending over backward for someone who looks like they just rolled out of a homeless shelter. What kind of message does that send to those of us who actually belong in first class?" The terminal went dead silent. Marcus stared at her. "I'm sorry, what?" "You heard me," she said, crossing her arms. Her British accent was cut glass sharp. "Just because you have money doesn't mean you should be allowed to board a first-class cabin looking like that. There are standards. Appearances matter. Some of us take pride in how we present ourselves." "Mrs. Ashford," Patricia started, her voice strained. "Perhaps this isn't the best." "No, I'm going to say what everyone is thinking," the woman, Mrs. Ashford, continued. "First class is supposed to be exclusive. It's supposed to be for people of a certain caliber. And frankly, letting just anyone in because they happen to have money completely devalues the experience for those of us who understand what first class truly means." Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. He'd dealt with people like this before, people for whom class wasn't just about money but about exclusivity, about keeping others out, people who believed their worth came from making others feel worthless. "You're right," he said, his voice mild. "Appearances do matter. For instance, right now you appear to be a deeply insecure person who derives her sense of self-worth from excluding others. That appearance, that's pretty accurate, isn't it?" Mrs. Ashford's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "And you're right that first class should be exclusive," Marcus continued, his voice still calm but carrying across the terminal. "It should be exclusive to people who paid for it, which I did. But you seem to think it should be exclusive based on something else. What exactly? The right accent, the right skin color, the right clothes. Here's the thing about actual wealth, Mrs. Ashford. The people who really have it don't need to perform it. We don't need to prove anything to strangers in an airport terminal." "I have plenty of money," she snapped. "I'm sure you do," Marcus said. "But you're insecure about it, which is why you need everyone around you to look the part. Because if someone who doesn't look wealthy is allowed in your space, it threatens your entire identity. And that's sad, honestly." Mrs. Ashford opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Do you have any idea who I am? My husband is Gerald Ashford of Ashford Industries. I know who Gerald Ashford is," Marcus said. "I'm currently in talks to acquire one of his manufacturing divisions. He's trying to sell because his company is hemorrhaging money. So maybe, and this is just a suggestion, you should focus on your own problems instead of worrying about what other people are wearing." The color drained from Mrs. Ashford's face. You're making that up." Marcus pulled out his phone again and scrolled through his emails. He held it up, showing a message thread with the subject line, "Ashford Manufacturing Acquisition, Confidential." "Here's the thing," Marcus said, putting his phone away. "I was going to recommend we go forward with that acquisition. Your husband's people have been good to work with, and I think we could save most of the jobs. But you've just reminded me that company culture matters. And if this is the kind of attitude that comes from the top of Ashford Industries, maybe we should pass." Mrs. Ashford went from pale to green. "You can't. My husband needs that sale." "Then maybe you should apologize," Marcus said simply. "To me, to everyone here you just insulted with your classist nonsense, and especially to Derek over there, who's having the worst day of his life partly because of attitudes like yours." She stared at him for a long moment. People were recording now. Marcus could see at least a dozen phones pointed in their direction. This would be all over social media within hours. Finally, Mrs. Ashford turned on her heel and strode away, her face burning with humiliation. Patricia cleared her throat. "Mr. Chen, we're ready to board you whenever you're ready." Marcus nodded. He gathered his battered suitcase and his laptop bag, very aware of the dozens of eyes watching him. As he walked toward the gate, spontaneous applause broke out. It started with one person, then spread through the terminal. People were clapping for him. He felt his face heat up. This wasn't what he wanted. He just wanted to go home, take a shower, and sleep for about 16 hours. But as he walked down the jet bridge, he had to admit, there was something satisfying about the whole thing. The first-class cabin was indeed empty except for him. Patricia personally showed him to the front suite, which was essentially a small room with a full flat bed, a large screen, and more amenities than any human could possibly need on a 12-hour flight. "Is there anything at all I can get you, Mr. Chen?" Patricia asked. "Sleep," Marcus said honestly, "just sleep." She smiled, a real smile this time. "I'll make sure no one disturbs you. The crew has been briefed. You're to be left completely alone unless you specifically request something." "Thank you." After she left, Marcus changed into the pajamas the airline provided, brushed his teeth in the suite's private bathroom, and collapsed onto the bed. The plane was still boarding. He could hear the distant sounds of passengers settling in, but it felt a million miles away. His phone buzzed. Sarah again. He answered this time. "Oh my God, Marcus, are you okay? Someone just posted a video of you at the airport and it's going viral. Something about a flight attendant trying to kick you out of first class. And then you told off some British billionaire's wife. What the hell happened?" Marcus laughed, surprised by how good it felt. "Long story, I'll tell you when I land. The board is freaking out. They want to know if we need to issue a statement." "No statement," Marcus said. "Let it play out. Sometimes people just need to see that wealthy doesn't have a look and power doesn't have a dress code. The internet is loving you right now. You're trending on 3 platforms. There's already a hashtag hoodie revenge." "That's terrible." "It's amazing. Do you know how much free publicity this is? Our stock price jumped 2% just from people Googling your name." "Sarah, I'm going to sleep now. Handle whatever needs handling. Don't bother me unless the company is literally on fire." "Got it. Sleep well, boss. You earned it." He hung up and closed his eyes. The plane was taxiing now, the familiar rumble and pressure changes he'd experienced 1,000 times. Within minutes, he was asleep. Marcus woke 12 hours later to a gentle announcement that they were beginning their descent into San Francisco. He felt almost human again. The crew, true to Patricia's word, hadn't disturbed him once. There was just a tray of food waiting outside his suite when he emerged, along with a handwritten note. "We're honored to have you aboard." The crew. His phone exploded with notifications the moment they landed, and he turned off airplane mode. Messages from board members, investors, friends, former colleagues, journalists. 3 missed calls from his mother. Probably about 20 from his publicist. The video had indeed gone viral. Multiple angles had been posted. People had filmed everything from Derek's initial confrontation to Mrs. Ashford's meltdown. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive, though there was the usual contingent of trolls claiming it was staged or that Marcus was playing the victim. But the most interesting message was from Richard Morrison. "Marcus, Derek has been suspended pending mandatory training, not fired per your request. Mrs. Ashford's husband called me personally to apologize for his wife's behavior. Apparently, she's now persona non grata at their country club. The video has sparked a real conversation internally about unconscious bias in travel. Thank you for handling it with grace. You could have destroyed us, but you chose to educate instead. That's leadership. Richard." Marcus smiled. Good, that's what he'd wanted, not revenge but change. His car was waiting. Sarah had arranged for his driver to pick him up. As Marcus walked through the terminal, people recognized him. Some smiled. A few gave him thumbs up. One young Asian man, probably in his early 20s, stopped him. "Mr. Chen, I just wanted to say, thank you. I'm a CS major at Berkeley and I've dealt with that kind of thing my whole life. People assuming I'm less than, that I don't belong. Seeing you stand up for yourself like that, it meant something. It means something." Marcus shook his hand. "You do belong, wherever you want to be. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The young man's eyes were wet. I won't thank you. Marcus got home to his relatively modest house in Palo Alto, a four-bedroom that he'd bought before Chen Technologies took off and never bothered to upgrade. His neighbors were professors, doctors, other tech founders. It was quiet. He liked quiet. He showered, changed into clean clothes, another hoodie, because he was nothing if not consistent, and finally checked his work emails. The Shanghai deal was progressing smoothly. His VP of operations had handled 3 emergencies he'd never even heard about. His assistant had scheduled his next month so efficiently he almost had time to breathe. And buried in his inbox was an email from Derek, the flight attendant. Subject: I have no right to ask for your time. Mr. Chen, I don't expect you to read this, and I certainly don't expect a response. I just needed to write it. What I did was inexcusable. I made assumptions based on your appearance, and I wielded my authority like a weapon against someone who had done nothing wrong. I humiliated you publicly because I could, because I was having a bad day, because I let my own prejudices override my training and my humanity. The company has suspended me and mandated I undergo extensive bias training before I can return to work. I'm grateful I still have a job, thanks to you. But more than that, I'm grateful you gave me the opportunity to understand why what I did was so wrong. I've spent the last 12 hours watching videos of our interaction from different angles, reading comments from people who have experienced similar treatment. I've read stories from passengers of color, passengers who don't dress expensively, passengers who don't fit someone's idea of what first class looks like. And I've realized I've done this before in smaller ways. I've made assumptions. I've judged. I've let my biases create a hierarchy where none should exist. I'm writing this not to seek absolution but to commit publicly, even if only to you, to being better, to seeing people as individuals, not as categories, to remembering that everyone has a story I don't know, and I have no right to judge them based on a moment's glance. I'm sorry, truly, deeply sorry, and thank you for teaching me a lesson I desperately needed to learn. Respectfully, Derek M. Marcus read the email twice, then he hit reply. Derek, thank you for this email. It takes courage to acknowledge when we're wrong, and even more courage to commit to change. Everyone has biases. The question is what we do when we recognize them. You could have doubled down, gotten defensive, blamed circumstances. Instead, you're choosing to learn. That's worth something. I hope your training helps. I hope you do become better. And I hope you extend the same grace to others that I'm trying to extend to you, the grace to grow, to change, to be more than our worst moments. Good luck. Marcus. He hit send and closed his laptop. The sun was setting over the bay, painting his backyard in shades of gold and orange. Marcus poured himself a glass of wine, a bottle from a vineyard his company had invested in, one of his rare forays into industries outside tech, and sat on his back porch. His phone buzzed one more time, his mother. Hi, Mom. Marcus Chen, why am I seeing you on the news arguing with flight attendants? And why do you look like a homeless person? Don't you have any nice clothes? Despite everything, Marcus laughed. I love you too, Mom. Don't I love you too, me? You're a CEO, you should dress like one. Mom, I dress like myself. That's kind of the point. She sighed the long-suffering sigh of mothers everywhere. Well, at least you stood up for yourself. Your father and I are proud of you, even if you do need a haircut. I'll schedule one. And a shave. And a shave. Good, now when are you coming for dinner? You work too much. Next week. This weekend. Mom. This weekend. I'm making your favorite dumplings. Bring that assistant of yours, Sarah. She works too hard too. You young people with your startups and your long hours. Marcus smiled, sinking into his chair. Okay, Mom, this weekend. Good, I'll see you Saturday at 6. Don't be late. She hung up before he could respond. because that's what she always did. Marcus sat there as the sun finished setting, as his yard grew dark, as the lights of Silicon Valley began to twinkle in the distance. He thought about the last 2 days, the deal in Shanghai that would change his company's trajectory, the humiliation at the airport, the viral moment, the apology, the young man at the terminal who'd been touched by a stranger standing up for himself. He thought about how strange it was that his worst experience and his best victory had come from the same moment, how power was nothing without humanity, how revenge was satisfying but ultimately hollow compared to actually changing hearts and minds. And he thought about Mrs. Ashford, whose husband was probably having a very difficult conversation with her right now about humility and kindness, and not tanking business deals with your entitled behavior. His phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Chen, this is Gerald Ashford. I owe you an apology on behalf of my wife. Her behavior was inexcusable. I hope we can still move forward with the acquisition discussions. I understand if you've changed your mind, but I wanted you to know that we're having serious conversations about family values and what we represent. Thank you for the wake-up call. Gerald." Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Let's talk next week. Everyone deserves a second chance. Marcus." He sent it and set his phone face down on the table. The wine was good, the air was cool, he was home. And tomorrow, he'd go back to being the hoodie-wearing CEO who was changing the world, one quantum processor at a time. But tonight he was just Marcus Chen, tired, vindicated, and finally at peace. 3 months later, Chen Technologies completed its acquisition of Ashford Manufacturing, saving 800 jobs and creating a new division focused on sustainable electronics production. Derek returned to work after completing his training and became an advocate for airline diversity and inclusion programs. Mrs. Ashford issued a public apology and donated substantially to organizations fighting discrimination. The video of the airport confrontation was used in unconscious bias training across multiple corporations, always with Marcus's permission and his insistence that it be framed not as "rich man gets revenge," but as "human being demands basic dignity." And Marcus, he still flew first class in hoodies and jeans, still carried his beat-up college suitcase, and still believed that how you treat people when you have power defines you far more than the power itself. Because that's what real wealth looked like, not in designer suits or perfect appearances, but in the freedom to be yourself and the grace to help others do the same. What would you have done in Marcus's situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of instant karma and standing up against judgment, smash that like button. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next incredible story of justice and revenge. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't determined by their appearance. Thanks for watching. Remember, never judge a book by its cover because that homeless-looking person next to you might just be your next boss.